Got is a new thriller film that is directed by a couple of people whose names I cannot remember, as you already knew. Stars Samara Weaving, Adam Brody, Mark O'Brien, among other people. I don't know, I'm not that particular on any of the names in this movie outside of Samara Weaving. Okay, so the basic premise and setup of this movie is that there's a woman played by Samara Weaving. Her name is Grace. She marries the love of her life. So she marries him, they have a great wedding, everything is great. His family are a bunch of freaking weirdos, but hey, what family isn't, right? Then as part of the wedding, she goes back to their mansion and they have to play some kind of game, you know, like some kind of initiation thing for the wedding. First, it just starts off as a simple and harmless game of hide and seek, but then you start to realize that you don't want to be found in this game. Because Grace finds out that the rest of the family is actually hunting her to kill her, like they have weapons and stuff, and if she gets found by them, they're gonna kill her, and their goal is to kill her before the morning. Now she kind of has to weave her way, weave, her last name is Weaving, weave, that's... I have way too much time on my hands. She has to try to get herself out of a dangerous situation where these people, these in-laws, are trying to kill her all night, and she's not even entirely sure if her husband is on her side. I knew nada, zilch, nothing about this movie going into it. I hadn't even seen a trailer for it, I don't think. I went into it completely blind, had no idea what I was getting myself in for. Right off the bat, I'll say that this movie is definitely kind of weird in the sense that I don't really know how to classify it. I mean, definitely it's kind of a black comedy movie because there was plenty of humor in here. It was actually a lot funnier than I expected it to be. And it's also kind of a thriller because there's some really intense moments as well, and then it's kind of a horror movie, but not really. This family though in this movie, this family, bruh, when I tell you that this family is messed up, you thought the Addams family had problems? I mean, holy shit, it's just... wow. I gotta say, the thing that kind of got me into this movie, besides the really dark humor and besides the intense sequences and the interesting setup and mythology of this game that they were playing, I know it might seem like hide and go seek, but actually there's something bigger going on and there's a bigger reason why everything is happening the way it is. The thing that sold me, the thing that kept me watching was the lead performance of Samara Weaving. Wow, she was amazing in this movie. Brought so much more charisma to this role than I expected her to. I actually haven't seen her in that many movies, so I didn't know much about her filmography coming into this thing. She was really fun to watch. She was really fun to root for in a movie like this. I have to point this out because I'm not sure how many other reviewers are going to point this out, but is it just me or does this chick look way too much like Margot Robbie? Not the only one that thinks that, right? I mean, it's kind of insane. It's crazy how much she looks like her. Granted, I'd let either one of them sit on my face, so it's no real change there. Throughout the movie, I was watching her performance and I was rooting for her and I was really liking her and I was like, man, Margot Robbie really brought it in this movie. Oh, wait, her name's Samara. Future reference to all those people out there who are wondering, and even if you weren't wondering, that's how I want to die. I want to die with a weapon of mass destruction attached to my face. For other people out there in the world, you might refer to it as vagina, but for me, it's a weapon of mass destruction. What I also appreciated about this movie and the premise and the setup and the mythology was the nuance to it, the complexity of it. There was also a complexity to the characters that I did not expect. I did not expect a lot of the other characters in this movie to be as multi-dimensional as they were. It's not just that everybody in this family is crazy and everybody in this family wants to kill her and everybody in this family just has no regard for human life. A lot of these characters have different reasons, different motivations, different backgrounds, different emotions behind why they're participating in what they're doing. There are some characters that aren't necessarily with it and don't necessarily want to do this type of stuff, but then they're part of the rich, they're part of the elite. Did I mention that her family's insanely rich? I suppose that's a detail that I should have mentioned in the setup for this movie, the synopsis, but hey, we're doing everything out of order today. Along with the surprisingly funny moments in this movie, in particular, one of the brothers in the movie, he plays a character named Daniel, I forget the actor's name. He was actually really funny in the movie in kind of a dry, sardonic, sarcastic way that I really appreciated. And putting aside the great humor, which is well-timed and very organic and doesn't necessarily take away from the tension of some of the more intense scenes in the movie. The fact of the matter is that I do have to mention the intense scenes in the movie because they're extremely well executed. You have an interesting setup, a crazy twisted family that isn't nearly as crazy or as twisted as the movie might make it seem, even though, yeah, they are pretty crazy and twisted. Sounds like a contradiction until you actually watch the movie and then you'll understand what I'm talking about. Not gonna lie, this movie surprised the hell out of me. I found myself smiling when I walked out of that theater. Granted, just because you're smiling in life doesn't necessarily mean that everything in life is hunky-dory. I'll tell you for a fact that not everything about this movie is hunky-dory. In fact, I'm not entirely sure why I'm using the phrase hunky-dory to describe the flaws in this movie. I have no idea, just roll with it. I'm crazy, you appreciate my crazy, we have a wavelength, we have a connection at this point, we have to. In terms of how the movie was helmed and filmed, I do think that it had some decent cinematography and good production design. I do think the movie did have some issues with some of its shaky cam. Shaky cam is one of those things things where it's an art form where some guys are really good at using it and some guys really aren't that good. While there are some suspenseful and exciting sequences that are well filmed, there are also some scenes where I'm like, the camera's just moving a little bit too much. I also think there was a little bit of an inconsistency with the way that some characters in the movie responded to violence versus other times where they seem to respond a different way. Not that big a deal, it's more of a nitpick thing that I noticed while watching the movie, but I'm all about continuity in a movie like this. If you set up a premise this interesting, I need good continuity. Speaking of good continuity, I also feel like the setup for this game could have been explored a little bit better. Backstory of this game, it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I had questions by the end of the movie that the movie didn't necessarily adequately answer, and it wasn't that satisfying for me. Like, some parts of this script definitely could have been tightened up a little bit, but overall, I had a really fun time watching this movie, and I expect a lot of other people will too. Ready or Not, here I come. Okay, that's not the title of the movie, but Ready or Not was pretty fun, and it belongs in the silver age of this show. Stay tuned for more videos. I got a lot more work coming out this week. As always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.